In the space of just 2 weeks, the Manchester United midfield has gone from a crisis position to a position of great strength, in back-to-back games outclassing the two best midfields in English football. The commander, the connector and the creator are cooking. So why are these three players cooking for Manchester United, especially on the ball? Because we have seen performances against Manchester City and Arsenal, and we've seen these United players with confidence, with that ability to take a good first touch and play in the middle of the park. There hasn't been this fear of playing through the middle. Suddenly United look like a very strong team in central areas. Well, one of the reasons why this has been such a thing for Manchester United over the past 2 weeks is because of Michael Carrick's tactical approach. Now, there has been a lot of talk of close proximity in the United team, players getting really close to each other. But what's also been important in the midfield is that they aren't blocking each other. In fact, we've often seen sort of staggered positioning with the Manchester United midfielders. And the reason why this is important is because it opens up more passing lanes, it stops our players blocking each other, and it makes it more difficult to trap us to one side of the pitch. So let's say Casemiro has the ball in midfield in this position here, and let's say United aren't staggered, so Mainoo is playing alongside Casemiro. For the opposition, this is much more easy to read and sort of force United to one side. Whereas the second Mainoo is a little bit higher, and now we've got that staggering in midfield, it forces that opposition player a little bit deeper, and now United have more room to play. There's the open pass that we could play to the other side of centre back, or we can move these diagonal passes through the lines and United can progress in that manner. The other great thing about being staggered and sort of playing diagonally is you are not playing such straight passes through the lines, and we've spoken about that quite a lot recently. When you play a straight ball like this, you are just asking the opposition to come and put pressure on the back. So United are doing this a lot less, and when we are doing it, we are getting the next player nice and close so that set pass can be played and United can still move at speed. So we are either playing diagonal passes in the first place, or we're playing vertical passes but then dropping them off diagonally, and it's allowing these three in midfield to really take the game by the scruff of the neck. Now, I think these days when we talk about positions and we talk about a team on the ball, we spend a lot of time talking about zones of the pitch, about wanting to occupy key parts of the pitch to stretch the opposition and to have a thing called balance, whatever that even means. So for example, you might expect, Bruno Fernandes to play on the right side of midfield, Mainoo to play on the left side, Casemiro to anchor the midfield, and you might expect them to stay in those positions. But for Michael Carrick and his midfield trio, that is not the case at all. In fact, these three are basically a gang that roam around the pitch, find their battles, and just destroy everyone they play against. So if the ball is over here on the right hand side with Diogo Dalot, best believe Casemiro and Bruno Fernandes are going to come over, but so is Mainoo. And this is how United have been overwhelming the opposition by getting so many players really close together. It's also how we've been dragging the opposition over before finding that spare pass, because if all of these players come really close, it brings the opposition midfielders really narrow, really central, because they're threatened by United. So for these midfielders, if nothing else, they always have that easy pass where they can play to the far side. So they're almost giving themselves that get out of jail free card where they can just hook it to the far side of the pitch. But more often than not, they're trying to persist with playing in at the middle. And I think they've been absolutely fantastic doing so. Now, I think the beauty of this trio is that they don't have to overload the opposition. Again, in modern football, we talk so much about getting overloads on the first line, in the midfield, on the last line. And of course, that is important. But when you've got three players like these three who are allowed to roam about the pitch, who are allowed to drift, who are allowed to work together on the ball, they don't actually need to overload the opposition. You see, this is what players do all day, every day in training, right? How often do we talk about 2 versus 2, 3 versus 3, 4 versus 4 passing drills? You see it all the time. And for these guys, it means that we don't necessarily have to overload this part of the pitch. So maybe we can overload somewhere else in the wide zone, because these three are capable of taking responsibility on the ball. They are capable of looking after the ball themselves. And because there is more freedom now in the team, because they can roam into more different positions, for the opposition, that becomes very difficult to pick up. It's very difficult to pick these guys up when they are moving into different zones. And I mean, with Bruno Fernandes, we're talking about one of the best midfielders of this generation. He's an absolutely incredible footballer, and I think he's becoming more and more complete. Actually, having a stint as a deeper midfielder has added something different to his game. He does take his time a little bit more, his temperament is a little bit better, and it's making him just incredible, because he's still just as deadly, which we'll come back to shortly, but his linking work, his first touch, his touch under pressure is now fantastic. And also with Mainoo as well, a player who really uses his arms well to look after the ball, who changes the tempo very well to manipulate the opposition. It means that United are able to go into these 3 versus 3s, and they don't need that extra teammate. They don't need that striker dropping in or the winger coming inside, because they can deal with it themselves. They're solving problems, and that's what you want to see from United players. Now, the other day, it was, of course, Patrick Dorgu and Cunha that got the headlines with 2 outrageously good goals. But actually, in the build-up to both goals, it's the midfield that does a lot of the work. And you can see Bruno Fernandes here, initially starting a little bit higher, which, again, we will come back to. And you can see him making this forward movement. And what he's doing is almost attaching himself to Saliba. He's almost going towards Saliba and going, Saliba, I'm your man, right? You're going to mark me. But then what he does is he just slows down and just sort of eases away and pulls away. And now you can see that. Now he's pulled away. So initially, here, the Arsenal midfielders think that the centre-back is picking up Bruno Fernandes. But now here, because Bruno has sort of evaded him, now he's just open. However, he is still under a lot of pressure. And this is where you need technical quality. This is where you need players that can take the ball under pressure, that can look after the ball, but also that are confident and have the character and the personality and the bravery to want that ball in the first place. This is 5 Arsenal players all ready to close in if the ball goes in there, yet still Bruno Fernandes demands it. And he doesn't demand it by screaming and shouting. He does it with his body language. He stops, he looks right at Patrick Dorgu and goes, pass to me. His body language is dictating what pass he wants. If he had an open body, that would suggest that he wants something that he can run onto. If he was, of course, sprinting, that would suggest he wants a ball in behind. But because he stands there and looks at Dorgu, he tells Dorgu, I want the ball into my feet. But he doesn't actually open his mouth to do that. It's just communication via your body. And when Bruno Fernandes receives the ball, we know what's going to happen. The Arsenal players are going to close in on him. And they do so. Arsenal are very good at doing this. They've got incredible work rate in the middle of the pitch. But United almost want that. What we're actually doing as we're playing this 1-2 in the middle is we're dragging Declan Rice out of position. We're dragging Declan Rice towards the ball. And this is almost a tactical gravity that we often refer to. When you've got a player like Bruno Fernandes and he picks up the ball in this position, you've got to go and defend him because he's so good. And it takes a couple of people to get over towards him. But because of that, it is going to open up that space somewhere else. So as Declan Rice comes over, United complete the 1-2 between Bruno and Dorgu, which is just sheer quality. We can then see all the space in the middle of the park that Dorgu runs onto, and the finish is mind-blowing. Now time for the Cunha goal, and again, Cunha gets all the headlines, but the United midfielders did well. And so did Benjamin Sesko initially, by the way. I think that has to be pointed out. He does brilliantly. But then so does Mainoo. He uses his upper body, he's strong against Mainoo in the middle of the park, and actually sends him tumbling to the floor. That's important. United being strong on the second ball. That's something the midfield has done very well in the past couple of weeks. But next it's about calmness. Bruno Fernandes picks the ball up and he takes a touch towards the left-hand side. Before slowing right down, he takes a really slow touch with the outside of his right foot. And if you look at Bruno's sort of body language here, we can tell he's not sprinting, we can tell he's not in a rush, we can tell he's, not really speeding things up. And that's how Arsenal feel. So they sort of trot over and like, okay, we'll force you wide, we don't mind that, we're going to defend over that side of the pitch. Cool, Arsenal feel quite happy in this moment. But then Bruno Fernandes with the outside of his boot just changes the tempo. And I think for a defender that's very difficult to read. But Bruno Fernandes just shifts that ball quickly to Mainoo, who does brilliantly. He doesn't rush towards the ball. Plays at his own speed all the time, and I absolutely love it. And here, it's sort of the decisive factor in the build-up to the goal. Takes his time. He doesn't rush towards the ball. If rushes towards this ball, what would have happened is it would have taken us back left. We would have ended up going wider. But what does is he lets the ball roll across his body. So he lets the ball come towards the middle of the park, despite knowing that he is being crowded, that there are Arsenal players all over the shop. This is great composure, but also technical quality and decision-making and game intelligence, really. Because as Declan Rice comes flying in, Mainoo just pokes that ball between his legs. It's a beautiful pass. But this whole time, look what United have done. We've drawn these Arsenal players in once again by playing a little bit slower. We've drawn all these Arsenal players towards us and opened up this massive space. So when Mainoo pokes the ball through the legs of Declan Rice, Cunha has all the room in the world to work in. So it's Cunha with the amazing goal. It was Dorgu earlier, but it's really Bruno Fernandes and Mainoo that have done some of the great work in the lead up to that. Now, I honestly think all 3 of the Manchester United midfielders have been brilliant. I think Casemiro's sort of disciplined role at the heart of midfield, still allowed to get forward, still completing a lot of passes, he's playing a key role. Mainoo has been fantastic considering he's played no football all season. But we've got to talk about Bruno Fernandes, freed up and playing in his best part of the pitch. And it is a different part of the pitch to what we've seen the rest of the season. Look at the 2 heat maps against Arsenal this season. The first one on the left, the first game of the year, where Bruno Fernandes was in the double pivot. In the second one, he's much higher up the pitch. He's allowed to play higher, starting as a 10. And what this does is it makes Bruno Fernandes the heartbeat of this Manchester United team. In the 2 games under Carrick so far, Bruno Fernandes has completed the most passes and the second most passes. He is back to being the heartbeat, the player that United want to play through. And I'm really going to simplify football for a second. If you've got one of the best players on the planet, one of the best creative players in history, in my opinion, you give him the ball, high up the pitch, and you allow him to create for his teammates. And that's something very simple that Michael Carrick has done. And Bruno Fernandes has just been amazing. But of course, again, it happens because of all of the work that we're doing prior to that. We've spoken over the past few days, again, about close proximity, but also the desire to play through the middle of the pitch as well. Not always going around, sometimes playing through. That's Lisandro Martinez. It's also Mainoo and Casemiro, who have been brilliant, and it's allowing us to find Bruno Fernandes. And Bruno is sort of allowed to go wherever he wants. You know, he's allowed to go to the left, he's allowed to go through the middle, to the right, he's allowed to run in behind. And he's just this insanely gifted player. 4 big chances created against Manchester City. And I think this moment against Arsenal is nearly a stroke of genius from him and Bryan Mbeumo. It's a sort of pass that only Bruno Fernandes tries. It almost doesn't make sense to try it. But he's got such a vision, such an eye for a pass, and the ability to pull it off as well, that it just separates him from any other creative player on the planet right now. I think he is an absolute joke. So, you know, it's quite simplified analysis right there. But I just think someone should pat Michael Carrick on the back for recognising what Bruno Fernandes is, putting him higher up the pitch, allowing him to play to his strengths. And I just hope it continues. I hope we keep this guy at the football club forever, because he is everything that Manchester United should be. And I think in the past 2, he's been a real leader for this Manchester United team in his desire, in his work rate, in his defensive discipline, but also in his pure quality on the ball. He's just fantastic. So yeah, basically, with just a few small tweaks and a change in our tactical intentions, the Manchester United midfield has gone from a position of a great crisis, really, to suddenly our strength, and it looks like our midfield could probably compete with anyone, which is very weird for that to change so quickly. All we've done is off the ball close the gaps a little bit, we've allowed them to play closer together, we've been more compact, and then on the ball we've allowed them to express themselves, we've allowed them to play close to each other. Of course, we've technically got an extra midfielder on the pitch as well, but they're allowed to roam about the pitch. There's a desire for United to play through the middle, and these 3 are allowed to go wherever they want, really, to ensure that that happens, and I think they have been absolutely fantastic. Hopefully that can continue till the end of the season. There's going to be some different challenges coming up where United have more of the ball, and the management of tempo is going to be a bit more important, and I'm excited to see how the team do that. The likes of Mainoo's ability to slow it down will be key, but also for Bruno Fernandes and Casemiro to create something. It's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out over the next couple of weeks. But in the 2 games so far, I think the 3 of them have been fantastic. Tactically, I think it's very clever how we're allowing them to roam away from a midfield position to just dominate and run the game. And they're doing a great job of it, which is, again, why I'm so happy. So yeah, that's the Manchester United midfield. Still needs recruitment, you know, we still need to improve it, but it's getting there. And, you know, I think in the last 2 games, they've been fantastic. So yeah, that is all I have to say about the Manchester United midfield. That is all I have to say for today's video. So thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed this one. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.